Hello, this is the Tonverk. It got a great new update recently, which you're probably aware of, with Granular, a bunch of other stuff, a nice shaper mode for the buses and stuff, and a bunch of nice bug fixes. I won't go over everything, but I'm gonna kind of go through the biggest things and just kind of play with the Granular mode a little bit, as I typically do if you know my videos, and we'll probably find some cool stuff you can do. So without further ado, let's get started. So here is the Tonverk. And yes, so I did a jam recently. This is what it sounds like. And off screen is the Digitone 2 and the Dreadbox Artemis up here, which are also playing. The Digitone is doing the drums, and the Artemis is that melodic slow tone. So I'll turn them both off. And this is the Tonverk left over. And it is 3 tracks. All 3 of them are using the Granular in different ways, and then they're going through buses as well. But it kind of started with this first track, which is a vocal sample. Let's see if I can get to show you what that sample sounds like normally. Go to B. Oh yeah, here it is. Oh. There we go.
Sacrifice.
It's this vocal sample saying sacrifice.
Sacrifice.
Not creepy at all, but you can see how much it has been morphed through this. Just as an example of how much you can use the grainer to completely manipulate things into whatever you want. And then this is another vocal sample. And this one is another one. Well, it's less shocking that it's a vocal sample because it sounds like one, but these are both from some sample pack I bought recently. I can't remember what it is called, but that doesn't matter. And then this third one is actually like a synth sound, so it sounds the most like what it is, but it's used in a fun rhythmic way. But anyways, this isn't supposed to be about my song, so I'm going on a little bit long about it, but I'll get back to them more in detail. I'm just going to kind of quickly go over some of the less super interesting parts of the update, just to get them out of the way, and then I'll come back to the main things. So one nice thing is, I'll memorize before I mess things up, they gave you the ability to use the undo and redo over here, which were previously disabled since this thing came out. They weren't doing anything. And now, if I'm playing, let's clear this, clear whole pattern, and then oops, and then if I hold funk, you'll see the no is lit up, so I can undo, and then if I want to redo it, now I can redo it. Now it's cleared again. Undo. So currently, I actually don't know what happened here. What is going on? Oh, I set it to a different sample. I was like, that's not what this sounds like. Currently, the undo and redo is just one step. So it said in the notes for it, I think, that they're planning on making it, giving it more functionality. So I assume you'll be able to go back several steps in the future. But even as it is now, it's nice to be able to undo a clear, because there was some of that on other machines. Like if you did the clear again without doing anything, it could undo it. So it's kind of similar to that, but I think it works a little bit better and in more scenarios. Either way, it's nice that that is there and working now. Another thing they did was add in for this machine for the first time the trig preview. So now you can hold a trig in the sequence, and that's what that step sounds like. which is great. That's a very important feature that everybody got very used to since it was added to the Digitect 1, I think was the first thing that had it a few years ago. It's not something that's always been around, but as soon as they put it out, it became so important to everybody that it was a bit scary when the Tonverk came out without it, but they've added it in now pretty quickly, and it's great, so hallelujah. Another thing, they added the ability to see the memory of your pattern. So that's this is a menu people can't find quite often. The preset button up here, file, hold func and press file, and this is your projects and everything. And in here, it's not a menu you can go into or anything, but it's just like a visible memory. Shows you how much is used and the percentage, so you know exactly how much is in your project. And for example, the factory pattern that starts up when you get the Tonverk, you'll notice that it takes a long time to load. It's like something like 2 or 3 minutes before it's done loading. Is because that uses 97% of the memory. It's almost a full 4 gigabytes. So that's why it takes so long. Most projects that most people use, I know myself, I would never come anywhere close to that, because like if there's too many samples and too many tracks being used, I will just make another project. So that's kind of like what you should do. And then so with that, you should never really have too slow of a boot up. Like this, with a few tracks going, there's only a few samples, I'm only using 1% of the memory, it boots up in no time. So that is nice to know. They also kind of fixed some bugs where there were some bugs before where things would get loaded into memory and stay there, and there was no way of seeing the memory before, so people were getting messages that their projects were full, because I think things like multi-samples were loading in, but then if you changed it, it stayed in the memory, I think, but there was no way to clear it out. Now, if you load up a multi-sample and then you change that multi-sample to something else, it removes it from the memory, which I've tested. You can go and look at the memory before and see the percentage and the number, and then change it to something else, and then it's gone. So I can even show you. Let's do this one, multiplayer, and load this. So loaded this in, and now let's look at the memory. It's at 2%, 108. So then let's change this back to single player. So now it's single player, and now I'll go back into memory, and it's back to 1%, 66. So it unloaded the multi-sample from the memory, and we're back in business. You can also, if you load in a sample here, let's just, whatever, single samples, drum hits, bass drums, doesn't matter. Let's, now in this menu, you can press func no, oops, that's not it. Incorrect, what is it? Func clear, there we go. Func clear, and you can unload that sample from the list, and now it is out of the memory. I think you couldn't do that before. I'm not 100% sure, but I think there was no way of clearing things out of the menu. I think you could maybe replace it if you pick the same slot and change it to something else, I'm not sure. But anyways, it's all good now, no more memory issues. Okay, so another thing they added on the compressor on the bus track. So I'm on bus track here, I'll go to an empty one. And now you can choose the source from one of the tracks or one of the buses and one of the external. I hope that eventually they'll add a left-right combined for external as the sound source instead of left or right, but that's not really that big a deal. You probably wouldn't do a stereo sound source as a sidechain, so that probably makes sense. Anyways, so that's that, but that's a great thing that they've done. Everybody wanted that. However, now it's actually less important because there's another way of doing sidechain, which, I mean, sometimes you'll want the compressor, but sometimes, a lot of the times you'll want to do it the other way, which is the shape thing that they added, which is on the buses and the sends. So its shape is the default, and it's the only machine option besides going to a MIDI. So func source, you can see shape there now. And then basically all it does is it adds a amplitude envelope and a shelving filter to all of the buses and the sends. Actually, the sends don't have... Oh, yes, they do. Yeah. Okay, so yes, what I just said. So with this, you can do sidechain ducking or whatever kind of rhythmic chopping type stuff you want to do in your buses. And so you can choose what things go to the bus and then have those be the only thing that get sidechain, so you can like avoid having the kick go in and then just kind of like sidechain everything else through a bus or whatever you want to do. Or you can also do it going through a send. Another fun thing is that you can change the width, the stereo width. So if you want to put say like basses or something through a bus, you can make them all mono by just going to stereo width 0, and then everything that goes to that bus is now mono. So that's a pretty handy tool to have. All right, for example, we got this track, and then on the bus that a bunch of tracks are going through, you can go to the amp page of the bus and choose the amp, the hold and decay there, and then oh yes, so what am I doing here? I forgot I need steps to actually trigger the pattern. So this is the sequencer for the bus. And I can remove the click if I add a little bit of attack there. But you can do whatever you want. As far as shaping the pumping, you can have it like lesser, or you can have it the other direction, which is kind of cool. You can make the hold longer. Lots of different options, and you can even like go to Funk Amp and change the envelope mode to ADSR. Yeah, maybe there's some use cases for that. Not one of them. Yeah, so that is a handy thing. One other thing I'll go over quick is that you can also in the buses and the sends, you can change the post effects panning left or right. So everything after all of the effects, which side you want it to pan. So that can be useful if you have like, you can have like two sends that are both like reverbs or something, and have hard pan one left and one hard pan right, and send a track to both of them. So then you could have like two different reverbs in two channels, or any kind of combination of things like that. Yeah, to get to that, you go funk to the effects, and then this is a weird menu that I keep forgetting how to get to, and I see a lot of people trip up to. You see on the effects thing, there's like kind of tabs up here. That's because if you press it again a couple times, then you get to this effects settings menu where you can change the effects in levels. So there's volume levels for the effects, and the post effects pan is here. So I kind of want to see what that is like. Let's test that send thing that I was talking about. So let's go to this send here, which is this Rumsklang reverb, and let's pan. Oh yeah, I gotta use the arrows. Fully pan this to the right. let's go to this send and fully pan it to the left. I guess there's no way to do this faster, I don't think. But let's change this also to a rumsclang reverb, but kind of different, I guess. I'm just kind of gonna do some stuff. Let's make this one have all the low cut and this one have all the high cut. That might make it sound different. And then okay, it's pretty cool. I can hear in the left channel that there's all the high pass stuff going on, and the right channel is all the low pass reverb going on. That's pretty cool. I mean, there's definitely a lot smarter and more creative ways of using that, but that's a pretty cool example. I have not tried, and now I have. Now, burying the lead, I will get to the granular stuff. Actually, just before I do the granular, one last thing I forgot to talk about with the the shape things for the shape machines for the buses and the sends is they have this shelving filter, which I did briefly mention but I didn't show, which lets you set the low and high shelving frequencies and then either boost or lower frequencies above those points. And that is very useful for many things, either just general shaping of sounds. For example, let's just show you here. Let's get everything going again. I set up with a fill everything to go through a bus that has parameter locked this page. Yeah, there it is. So I parameter locked a two-step thing here where step one only happens when I hold the fill button, and it does that to the filter, and everything that's going through it now has this high-pass filter effect. And then this is a thing that will reset it, because if you don't reset it, then I think it'll stay that way. I'm not entirely sure, but so that only happens when there is no fill. So now I let go of the fill, then that one will trigger and we're back in business. So that's a pretty fun thing you can do with that. But anyways, back to the grainer, that's what it's called. It's a granulator, but it's a grainer. Anyways, it's called the grainer. So I think the best way to show is kind of starting from scratch, and then maybe I'll go through some examples, I'm not sure. But so here is a sample. I'll boost it a bit. Using the grainer, everything's at default still. The sample sounds like this. So it's kind of like a nice pad thing. And so to start, it's going to be kind of not doing much there. I can move the position of the start point, and like that's already a usable thing. Sure, like you can find a nice point and just kind of do that. But yeah, I really like the visual feedback on this, all the little squares showing all the little grains. So density is how close together the grains are playing, and kind of on this random mode, it's more like how often they're triggered. So at like lowest points, like you barely ever get any grains. and up to 127. It's like a constant smear. Size is how long each of the grains are. So let's lower it a bit so you can hear. And let's change it down to 1. So now there's only one grain playing at a time, and you can hear it get longer as I make it. So now each of the grains sounds like that, and then I can like have like multiple of them, smear them together. Yeah, so density on random mode, it really does just boil down to how often they're triggered, and at high numbers they're triggered so often that they end up like smearing together. So it's best to think of that as like how often they are going for density. And then the position is obviously the position of the start point for the grains. Scan is a fun one where it's if you can't, there's no visual feedback of the bar, but it's basically like this bar is scanning through the sample, so you can see those just going on their little journey, and it's positive or negative, so you can make it go backwards, and it's how fast you want it to go. And then so now the sample's playing backwards, but each of the grains is playing forwards, so it's moving backwards but playing forwards. On the second page there's controls to make it go backwards, but we'll show that later. Spread is how far apart each of the grains are. So from this, so I'll get rid of the scan. So back to 0 scan. Put it in the middle, and then you'll see at low amounts they pretty much all start around the starting position, and then as you raise it up, those little squares start starting at different points in the waveform, further and forwards and backwards, until at maximum every grain is fully random and can start at any point. So let's kind of have it in the middle. And then pan is pretty much what you expect. The stereo panning of each grain, because as you can see from this great visual feedback, it's like some of these grains are starting fully on the left or the right or wherever in the middle. So because we got stereo samples, we got grains that can start at different points in the stereo field. And that is that. Amount is how many grains are playing at once. So at 1, you only got 1 going at a time. So there's 8 voice polyphony in this, and you can have 8, each voice can have 8 grains. So 8 grains, 8 voices, you can have up to 64 grains going at one time. So yeah, on this second page here, you get the amount, and then direction is, it's if the grains are playing forwards or backwards, but it's nice because it's a fadeable thing. So it's like 75% of them will play forwards, meaning 25% will play backwards. So you can have a nice mix of both, which I really love. Overdrive a little bit now. I'm also going to turn up some reverb and some delay and some chorus, because now it'll sound prettier. Now we got fade and shape and fade here, so it's pretty self-explanatory. It's shaping this envelope here, so that's basically what each of the grains will sound, the envelope for each of the grains. So let's change it to 1, and you can hear at this shape they're all sharp and then they fade off. or you can have them basically continue the entire time. And you'll hear clickiness if it's set to be sharp like that, so you can just kind of taper the ends as you need to get rid of the clicks. Sometimes you want clicks depending on the sound. And you can do that for like the reverse ramp. It's nice. Anyways, so that's the bulk of it for the random mode, but you also have two other modes. So sync. For sync, it is tempo synced, and the density and size parameters choose the basically the time division. So let's get rid of delay and reverb and everything so we can hear it clearer, and then go down to like 1 grain, because now you can clearly hear the rhythm. If you hold funk and turn, so density and size will work together here to make the time division. It's best to just kind of like turn both until you get to the rhythm that you want, not try to think too much about it. But the great thing about this is you can parameter lock these, so it's really great to make rhythmic things, like on this track. Sorry, this track. No, this track. Forget my tracks. This one here is using parameter locked. So size is 32 and there 16, and then 32 density. Whereas as default it's at 16 and 16. So that gives me that cool rhythmic change there. Yeah, so you can do that for sync mode to make cool rhythmic things, and I mean, you don't have to lock it into the perfect time division if you don't want it to be exactly on time, but if you hold funk and turn, it will lock to even divisions. So size will still be making like the length of it, so if you want each one to be short, then that's fine. And this is kind of like a multiplier almost. Pretty cool. And then lastly, we got oscillator, which turns it into an oscillator. Let's get rid of scan here, and then it'll just sit around one spot. So yeah, it's turning the grains into an oscillator. The controls work similarly, but like at maximum density, only 1 grain will play at a time, and then lower the density, they'll all smear together. And the Granular has its own set of new filters. So it has a low pass 4, low pass 2, a band pass, which is really useful for granular stuff. Frequency spread thing. It's got its own shelf. Has a high pass, low pass notch, and 2 different notch filters, notch 1 and notch 2. yeah, so I don't know. I'm not feeling super creative right now, so not the best examples or anything, but that's just basically how they work. I have two other tracks here that are using the granulator to show off. This is a fun one because it's using the arpeggiator, which works really well with the granular synthesis stuff. I need to get into it too much, but it's just a lovely sound. And then this track is actually a kick. So really anything put through the grainer will sound cool, or can sound cool, and you have lots of options, because like putting this kick through there just adds this like kind of creepy dark texture. You could like transpose it higher. As usual, always better when I shut up and just start playing with it. Anyways, that's enough. This was probably the rambliest video on the subject that you've seen so far. But hopefully showed you some cool stuff. If not, well, you've already watched it. Thanks anyways. So have a great day, and catch you next time.